welcome back to my channel. I just made some really nice parkin today, which is like basically a very rich gingerbread. It's a Yorkshire yeah. It's a Yorkshire specialty, which is traditionally consumed over sort of this period, sort of October, bonfire night. It's basically, like a very rich gingerbread, and it actually tastes better on maturing, so I've kept some aside for later. I gave some to my dad, he really liked it. It's like chewy on top, soft inside, so good, because I've all got treacle. It's got loads of treacle and golden syrup in it, it's really nice. Anyway, in today's video, I wanted to discuss an article that I recently read in Spectrum News magazine. Spectrum News magazine is like an online scientific magazine which discusses issues relevant to autism. And I came across this article that was posted on Twitter from Spectrum News saying it's time to embrace profound autism. Now, the article is by someone called Alison Singer, who is president of the Autism Science Foundation. And Alison Singer has a daughter who has profound autism. So for those of you who don't know what profound autism is, it's kind of synonymous with severe autism, but it basically means that, in her case, that her daughter is minimally verbal, has painful self-injurious behaviours, has an intellectual disability, aggression and seizures, and she needs 24-hour care. It sounds a bit, at first glance, the title, I was thinking, is this a neurodiversity movement article? It's time to embrace profound autism, sounding, I was thinking, that's interesting, is that a neurodiversity article? No, it's completely opposite, This is actually a sort of neurodiversity critical article, in a sense, because Alison Singer is saying that we need to split the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder and add a new diagnosis of profound autism, because she says that the autism spectrum disorder diagnosis is overshadowed by higher functioning members of the autism community, and that this means that those with profound autism are maybe being left out or excluded. Obviously, this article then, I noticed there was a little bit of a backlash from some people in the neurodiversity movement, as to be expected. She draws upon a report in The Lancet, which argues that the term profound autism is critical to distinguish people with high dependency needs from a more verbally and intellectually able population, and that close to 50% of autistic people fall into the category of profound autism. I'm not quite sure where they get that statistic from, but that's what it says in the article anyway. She says here that the term autism spectrum disorder has become such a big tent term that people under that tent often have very little in common with one another. It can mean a highly verbal, or autism can mean a highly verbal, or someone who's non-verbal. And she says that if we're going to personalise the approach to care, as the Lancet Commission report suggested, then we need terminology that is specific and meaningful, rather than terminology that lumps everyone together. The neurodiversity community's success at drawing attention to its issues has led many to conclude that those issues are representative of everyone. For the broader public, the word autism now only describes the more verbal end of the spectrum, as people who meet this criteria are able to have a voice and appear in the media. Autistic people with severe intellectual disability are invisible. Many high-functioning autistic delegates at conferences are angry over the terms the presenters used in talks, terms such as disability or intervention. But these words are necessary. Her daughter does have a disability. Yeah, she says she has a disability. If she didn't, she wouldn't qualify for services. And also there's different research priorities between verbal autistic adults and the parents of profound autism, or the parents of people with profound autism. Pretending people with profound autism don't exist by eliminating language to describe their symptoms is itself ableist. It is time to admit that lumping everyone together along one spectrum has created ill will. There's real-world implications for people with profound autism when high-functioning advocates seek to deprioritise medical research, censor necessary scientific language, and only by returning to at least 2 separate diagnoses can we begin to meet the highly diverse needs of both groups. Okay, so that's what Alistair Singer basically says in a in that article. I just condensed it. Obviously, the article itself is a little bit longer. I just wrote down the relevant points. So what do I think? Okay. Well, I'm gonna obviously this is a sort of half-baked response because it might take me some time to think about this through more deeply. Yes, first of all, I can understand completely where she's coming from. First of all, autism has become this big tense diagnosis that can mean literally anything now, and I do feel that. Yeah, we do need some sort of subgroups to distinguish between different clinical, essentially different clinical diagnoses, because having just one diagnosis, autism, doesn't make any sense when it covers such a broad group of people. We do need different diagnoses. Maybe having autism as an umbrella. I don't know, in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, maybe having the autistic conditions, and then maybe having very distinct diagnoses with kind of, like that basically. Obviously I'm worlds apart from her daughter, God, that must be hell. Quite frankly, at least I don't have that type of autism, God. I wouldn't wish that type of autism on anyone, I don't think anyone would want that type of, let's put it this way, no one wants to be autistic in the first place, right? You wouldn't know that from very some first year advocates talk about it. But that type of autism, the type of autism my daughter has, must be absolutely hell on earth. And I don't have that type, and I'm thankful I don't. But obviously my type is still very disabling in its own right. So I agree with her that we do need different types of autism. I disagree though in her rather binary, seeming rather black and white idea that just because someone can talk and is highly verbal, that therefore they don't need much support. I disagree with her there. Yes, obviously I have a completely different condition to her daughter. We're miles apart. We're so far apart it's not even worth comparing. Comparisons are not helpful. It's like comparing chalk and cheese. We're so far apart. It's just a completely different entity. And it's quite weird in a way that we both share that diagnosis, autism, and I do think that something needs to be done about that. I said in a previous video that I don't really care what my condition is called so long as it's taken seriously and I get support. Whatever my condition is called, I want it to be taken seriously and not trivialised. If in the future I was given a different condition other than autism, and autism was reserved for people like her daughter, but they gave me a condition diagnosis that was made to be very serious and whatever, I would be fine with that as long as it was treated seriously and as long as I got the support I needed. So yes, I do think something needs to be done. It doesn't make sense to lump everyone, so many different people, under the same umbrella. It is creating ill will because the priorities are so different. We're not talking the same thing. Different priorities. It's completely different. So yeah, completely agree. But I disagree that it's as simple as splitting verbal people from non-verbal people. That's where I disagree a little bit. Although I don't know if she meant that. She might have meant it in a more nuanced way. I guess in an article of that length, it's hard to know exactly, what. It's hard for someone to kind of express fully what they think in just one article. So she may well, if you spoke to her, she may well agree with what I'm saying. But I do think that just having a simple split between verbal and non-verbal is too binary, because it ignores the severe disabilities people like me have. And yeah, like I say, I'm miles apart from her daughter. I can't even compare myself to her daughter. It's a completely different condition. It's just not the same as what I have at all. There might be some traits that we share, but it's so completely separate to what I have. it is rather absurd calling it the same condition, and talking about it as though it's the same condition would say that I'm mild compared to a daughter, and like I say, that's true. Compared to a daughter, I am mild, but that doesn't help me when I want to get support because I'm still severely disabled, and I should be able to articulate that without constantly thinking I need to step carefully so that I don't offend parents of profound autism. And to do that, I need to have a distinct diagnosis that I can talk about my severe disability, which is severe, without actually, relativising or trivialising those who are much more severe than me. Because when I'm talking about my own needs, I'm talking about my own needs. I'm not thinking about other people, I'm talking about my own needs. It might sound selfish, but that's the reality of it. When you want to get support, you're not thinking, oh, I'm mild compared to so-and-so. You think, I need this support. That's what you're thinking. And you have to use the right terminology to express how severe your situation is. And obviously there's always going to be people who are more severe than you. Always. Like, even her daughter, there's probably people who are even more severe than her daughter. Although her daughter is probably one of the most severe as you can get, but there probably are even people who are even more severe than her daughter, relatively speaking. But yeah, so I agree with her, but I also think that we do need, it is a bit more complex than just splitting the verbal from the non-verbal. Treating autism as though it's just one thing does create problems because you have this rather linear spectrum idea. Is autism's one thing, right? Then you have from mild to very severe. That implies you're comparing people with the same condition. When it's not the same condition, then it doesn't really make any sense. That would be like comparing a person with a normal IQ who's depressed to someone who's got an intellectual disability and who's depressed, and saying that one of the intellectual disability is depressed has it more severe. Well, yeah, in one sense they do, but that doesn't really help for a depressed person with a normal IQ who's also severely disabled. Do you know what I mean? So, talking about autism as though it's just one thing, like a sliding scale from mild to severe, relativises the problems of people like me, but it also means that people who have like profound intellectual disabilities on top of autism, it can mean that their carers can then struggle to get their needs met because people just have no idea what autism is anymore. It's just become this big tent. Like, we do need clear divisions. We do need separate diagnoses is what I think. I think it will just help everyone. Okay, so moving over to video number 2, just to clarify some points, so moving over to video number 2 now.